Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Week 9 DFS Dad Plays of the Week. We'll give you a rundown of a couple quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight end that we like. And, we put our money where our mouth is. We will play a lot of these guys in our single entry and cash core, depending on the build, obviously. If you haven't already, come check us out, dfsdads.com, Facebook, Twitter, the DFS Dads. Give us a shout out, ask questions. Feel free to join. We have Discord, a group that's awesome, where we bounce ideas and ask questions and things of that nature. All right. So week 9, a little tougher pricing, in my opinion, especially with, some of the top end guys versus, the lower range guys. But for QB, it seems pretty easy this week. As far as a double upper cash play, I think Lamar has got to be that guy. Just his price point versus his output coming off a bye week, he should be super fresh, and that's a good thing for him because he uses his legs more than anybody. He has the highest ADOT in the league by almost a full 2 yards at 11.3. Josh Allen is second at 9. He has more passing yards than Aaron Rodgers. And he has, I think, like a couple less passing yards than Herbert. So he's been throwing the ball pretty well this year. Second in deep attempts. He almost averages 6 per game, which is a lot compared to some of the other teams. He's third in fantasy points among all QBs. Number 1 in air yards per attempt. Like I said, they try to stretch the field. They put pressure on the defense, to not stack the box and try to stop the run. He's number 1 in rushing attempts among all QBs, which is no surprise. But the thing that's a little weird is he only has 2 rushing TDs on the year. So eventually it's got to go back to the norm as far as his output versus the touchdowns. And so I think we see an uptick in his rushing touchdowns this week. Minnesota's bottom half in both rushing and passing defense, so that fits right into Kyler Murray. Getting ahead of myself, to Lamar. A good example of the type of play that Lamar does is Kyler Murray. Both use their feet. So Kyler Murray, probably a little better pure passer, but he threw for 400 yards, 3 TDs, and had 40 rushing yards and another touchdown against Minnesota back in week 1 or 2. I can't remember. Might have been week 3. So same style of play. So you kind of see the output that he had versus, what Lamar can do in that 7,300 and 8,300 on DraftKings and FanDuel. I think he's a great play in any type of format. All right, a guy we like more GPP single entry type is Tua. He's 58, DK 73, FanDuel. So a couple of good things is Miami and Houston are 29th and 30th in points allowed, so they're both bad on defense. Miami is dead last in rush attempts per game, meaning they're throwing the ball a lot more. And part of that's because they're down, but in games even that they've been up or pretty close, they just don't run the ball a lot. They don't have a bell cow. Gaskin's more of a an Eckler type back as far as he's going to get 10 to 15 rush attempts, and then most of the other stuff's going to be through the air. Miami is 5th in passing attempts per game in the NFL. Tua has thrown it 47, 40, and 39 over the last 3 games, so they're chunking the rock. He's had 2 of his best games. Obviously he was hurt at the beginning of the year, but he's played 4 full games. 2 of those against Buffalo and New England, where he did okay. Wasn't anything to write home about. I think he had 16 or 17 DK fantasy points last week against Buffalo, but against inferior defense Atlanta and Jacksonville, he scored 25 against Jacksonville, 28 against Atlanta. I think he was the number 1 fantasy quarterback that week. So he obviously has the ability. Obviously Devontae Parker being out kind of hurts, but he's shown he'll throw it to anybody except Gesicki there at tight end, who's a big athletic guy. Waddle, who we really like this week as well. And, Gaskin out of the backfield along with Preston Williams, who's playing this week. He got coach's doghouse last week, and he's a big play threat too. Going down to running backs, top end, I like Cook. He's been banged up all year, but we saw a snap share rise. He's been back a couple weeks. Went from, I forget what the percentage was, but it rose like 30% as far as his snap share. So seems to be fully healthy. He's fourth at opportunity share on the year. So when he is in there playing, he's often getting the bulk of the carries, and then targeted in the passing game. He averages 24 touches, about 20 carries, and 4 targets. Hasn't had the receiving yardage that we're accustomed to from seeing him in the past, but I like that aspect of the game this week. Baltimore's pretty vulnerable to receiving running backs. They give up almost 6 catches for about 60 yards per week, and on the year they're giving up almost 20 points per game to opposing running backs, both rushing and passing. But Baltimore, Minnesota has a 46% advantage in the run game, according to PFF. So I like Cook's opportunity, to get some things going this week and get back to that form we're used to seeing from him. Another guy I really like, kind of in the same boat, kind of been banged up here and there, is Nick Chubb, 67 on DK, 76 on FanDuel. The dude is a beast when he gets opportunities. Had his worst game of the year last week. Got 16 carries for like 60-something yards. But the good news is Ernest Johnson, who went off the week before when Chubb and obviously Hunt were out, only saw 4 carries. Some people see the touchdown that he scored and, think they're in timeshare like he was with Hunt, but he only had 4 carries. Just one of those happened to be a touchdown that he snaked from Chubb owners who were probably very unhappy. The good news is the Browns are the third most run-heavy team in the league at 32 rushes per game. They lead the league in rushing yardage per game at 152, I believe. And so you like Chubb, to get the bulk of the carries. I mean, he's going to get, you would think 20 to 25 carries this week, given the fact that they run it 32 times per game, just based on the averages. Obviously last week he was back from the injury with his calf. So, I like him to be full steam ahead this week. He averages almost 100 yards a game. So it's not like, he's had a bad year. He's 5.5 yards per carry, which is right up there. Even better than he was last year. Last year's, I think, 5 yards per carry. They have the second highest advantage on the O-line as far as the run game is concerned, according to PFF, at 85%. So a lot of things are pointing in the good direction of Chubb. I think he gets a little more involved in the passing game. Obviously, got Hunt being there, and he could have a really big week. Moving down to Mitchell is our cheaper in play. We were on him last week. Really balled out for us, 137 yards and a touchdown. San Francisco has the biggest advantage in the run game, according to PFF, 98%. And San Francisco obviously likes to establish the run. San Francisco running backs have been kind of scary sometimes in the past couple of years, especially with Shanahan there. But when Mitchell has been healthy and played, he's dominated the snaps. So he's had 4 games basically where he's been the starter. He dominated the carries in all of those. He has back-to-back 100 plus yard rushing weeks with the touchdown. Like I said, 3 or 4 of the games he started, he's done very well, had over 100 yards. Price point is still very good, 5,800 and 7,100 respectively. He didn't get any targets the last 2 weeks, but he's run 12 plus routes in each of those. So I think we get a revert to the norm. He'd probably get 2 or 3 targets this week, which obviously will help or in DraftKings when you get the full point PPR. But any chance he gets to get the ball is a good thing. All right, moving down to wide receivers. Tyreek is the top dude for me this week, 7,900, number 1 in targets. A lot of defenses are playing that cover 2, taking away the deep threat. So Mahomes has just been hammering him, on these short intermediate routes, which, obviously not as big of explosive plays, but he had 18 targets last week, something crazy like that. So Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to get it to their playmakers. Expect Kelsey and Tyreek both to have, 10 plus targets this week. They pass it 43 times per game. Obviously, have defensive woes as far as getting scored on, so they're always down this year and been throwing it. Tyreek's number 2 in air yards. He has 29% target share in the red zone. 6th best advantage against all opposing quarterbacks this week with almost 78%. And he's number 2 in fantasy points per game. So, pretty safe bet at 7,900. He gets the volume, explosive offense. I mean, their offense hasn't changed. They're going to get clicking again, and it's sooner rather than later. Too much talent on the offensive side of the ball. All right, a couple of cheaper guys here, like T. Higgins, 5,300. Snap share has gone up. He was out a couple weeks with injuries, so he's got a minimum of 6 targets over the last 4 games. 8.2 targets per game on the year is his average. So a guy that's 5,300, he has great upside for his price point with a very good floor. I think he has 13, 14 points the last couple weeks. So right there, almost 3x his price point. Chase gets more attention, obviously loosens things up for Higgins. We know how explosive Higgins can be. He's 21st in air yard share, which is a percentage of team total target distance. So, a lot of things pointing to Higgins as far as, being a very good play in general, but, with a ton of upside. I like Jarvis this week, moving on down to another receiver. He's 5,100, so very, very cheap as far as, DK is concerned. He's only 59 on FanDuel, which is almost even better bargain. He's seen 18 targets the last 2 weeks, 10 and 8, respectively. He seems finally healthy. He's been on the shelf for a lot of the year, but his snap share went from 52 to 90% from week 7 to week 8, showing that he's fully healthy. OBJ, no OBJ anymore. So those target shares have to go somewhere. He has a very good advantage on paper against the Cincinnati cornerbacks, 70% according to PFF. And here's a big one, 54.5% target rate, which is targets per route run. He's number 1 in the NFL, right? So when he runs a route, why can't I think of his name right now? The QB Baker, finds him. So number 1 in targets per route run. And it's got a great price point, 5,100. So I like him in pretty much all formats. He's going to get the work. All right, a tight end. I'm going to give you one tight end, and it seems almost outrageous that he's only 3K. Conklin for Minnesota. The main reason being he gets quite a bit of volume. He gets 5.3 targets per game, which is 11th among all tight ends. Minnesota throws it a lot, 40 pass attempts per game. He's 10th in receptions on the year, 11th in receiving yards. And Baltimore's dreadful against the tight end, pretty much dead last in every statistical category. They give up 12.3 fantasy points per game to the tight end. And, Conklin's pretty involved. He's pretty athletic, yards after catch. So, he's way too cheap. If you need a cheap tight end, like this is a no-brainer for me. Punt defense of the week. This is one of the things we're known for here at DFS Dads, is giving you a cheap fee that pays off. I think it'll be pretty popular, but it's the Chiefs. Obviously they've been terrible on the defensive side of the ball, but you get a rookie or a guy making his first start for Green Bay in Arrowhead, which is a tough place to play. They're loud. You have the Chiefs, who are hungry. They haven't really been in this position of late. So they're going to be chomping at the bit to turn this thing around. And the defensive side of the ball is the main focus at this point. So I expect them to put a lot of pressure on a first-time starting QB with Rodgers being out. So, the Chiefs could easily get a pick 6, and then obviously they're gonna pay off big time at that price point. 2,300 on DraftKings and 3,300 on FanDuel. All right, guys, come check us out, DFS Dads. That's our rundown for the week. We'll post a deep dive with all of our other plays that we like, our MME, and we'll have our single entry core and our cash score up on the website. All right. Good luck, guys.